You have sound?
Yeah.
Is it there? Okay.
Hey. Hey, what's up, everybody? What's up?
Good?
Yeah.
What's up, y'all?
I don't have headphones out here.
Whatever, it's fine. Welcome to the Free China Pod. Long time no see.
I mean, not me, but you're talking about
The
traditional
audience.
format.
The audience. Long time no talkie to the audience. Yeah, I guess I have been streaming, so maybe not long time no see. But
Do those go on a podcast platform still?
if I stream games, they don't. If I stream the, I can tell you I haven't been listening to them. If I stream the updates, then I do. I know.
Sometimes I do.
It's usually just like
About a week ago.
Taiwan news updates. I don't even bother with talking about U.S. politics.
Hell yeah, brother. Who cares about that stuff?
The only time I want to talk about that is when I want to make fun of it because of how stupid it is. And how screwed America is because of the liberals and the conservatives. What's up? We just had the referendum.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty hot. Like the chocolate all over your face. Pretty hot.
Is it all over my face?
No, just on your lips. Your lips. Basically, not much happened because nothing passed the threshold.
Well, like I said to you before, I think the most interesting is that Taiwanese voters who participated, which were about 39% of the eligible population, which is extraordinarily low for any kind of election, voted to keep the system the way it was and not link a referendum with local or national elections, which means that they will continue to have low turnout, which means a very small percentage of the electorate who deeply care about those issues will have a disproportionate say in the future of Taiwanese politics. So I guess it's not surprising if you think of it from like they're rational and they prefer to increase their influence to people who participated. But on the other hand, if people don't like taking a Saturday, although it is nice for them, they get a day off of work and everything because it's a national holiday. But if they don't like taking a Saturday to come to an election, it's not for any candidates. It's just a referendum only. Then you can go vote against it. So that's the one that surprised me the most. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised at people telling me that it was because they'd had issues with voting in the past when they linked referendums and like national elections. So
I think it's a BS excuse. I think the DPP is weird on this.
Well, that seems to be yes, that's true. I mean, I personally would probably think it would be better if they linked them because then. But
as do I. I agree with you. I think more people coming into these things is generally better.
Yeah. Hopefully, get people to like pay a little bit of attention. Though that's kind of a.
I think most of these issues, though, I think they don't feel like these issues have any substantive effect on their lives because the government is going to do whatever the fuck it wants to either case, and they don't care about these kind of really niche issues in general.
No, I would agree with that.
So just for those listeners, the 4 issues were linking referenda to national elections for candidates. So right now, they have national elections national elections every 4 years, and then alternatively every 4 years. So actually, every 2 years there's a major election, and the other alternative is local elections for like city mayors and county mayors and that kind of stuff. The second one was about banning the import of ractopamine pork. Do you know anything about that?
In the U.S., what do you mean about ractopamine?
Yeah, I don't.
Ractopamine is like a leaning product. It like leans out pigs, and they use it in cattle and stuff too. But the big worry is pigs.
Xi Jinping knows all about that.
He sure does, and that African, or should we say Chinese swine fever. But yeah, it's just like a leaning agent, and there are worries about health issues, but there seems to be very little.
But it's leaning agent, meaning that it lowers their fat levels.
Right. Yeah.
Why would that be preferable? Because I thought people wanted fatty pork.
It appears not. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a big meat eater, so I'm not 100% sure. But that's what
It's like 1 meal a day.
I think it also it has to do with like reducing, I think, also the amount of food that they need to give them.
Uh,
Not an expert on ractopamine either, but this is from the little that I've read on the subject, because this is one of those issues where I just don't really care because it doesn't affect me.
yeah.
My feeling is like, if you don't want to eat ractopamine pork and you're worried about it based on like a few studies that have come out, then don't eat it. Just don't eat meat. Just don't eat meat. I mean,
yeah.
I think that's an option. But yeah, don't eat pork. And in Taiwan, I don't know how accurate it is, but they label them. Like every shop has one that says like Meizhu or Taiwan Zhu or whatever. Like,
so it's probably not particularly accurate. I don't know how much imports there are right now because Taiwan grows enough pigs.
Yeah, I don't know how much oversight.
On the highways.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much oversight there is over it either. Like in terms of like checking if the stores actually are using whatever pork they say they're using. And again, I
think that's probably like the least of their concerns.
Yeah.
I think because of the lack of regulation in general of the market here, the amount of antibiotics and like parasites and weird shit that's getting into the supply of Taiwanese pork in general is horrific. And yeah,
I think it's worse in America, honestly. But I don't know. They seem to be like they put a lot of antibiotics into. I mean, I used to live on a cattle farm. They put a lot of antibiotics into those cows. Yeah. So I don't know. There's people should be concerned about that with what they put in their body, but I think that obviously the easy answer is just don't eat meat. But
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, but yeah, I wasn't gonna say anything else.
Okay, the other two were about the algae thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Which the wording of that referendum I didn't really get, but anyway, just about some issue where they're having a natural gas plant.
They're building a natural gas plant like on the coast, and they're worried about it destroying this like really rare type of algae.
Coming from what we did the previous week, which is going to the Ingwang and watching Chalioto, which has a protected nature reserve.
Yeah.
Started a fire that lasted 3 days, about 10 feet from the water, like waiting for that ash to just go in and completely decimate the local biosphere. I think that Taiwan is, the concern is kind of a joke. Like, realistically, there's so much water pollution coming out of the number of factories in Taiwan is insane.
Yeah.
And I think if they were really worried about it, then they would actually enforce the existing like water regulations that they have, because I mean, I'm a chemist, but I'm not like an environmental engineering expert or anything like that. But driving through a lot of these industrial areas and smelling the effluents, particularly at night that they dump.
Yeah.
And all Taiwanese people allege that most of these companies basically, because the inspectors only inspect during the day, they'll just dump all of their effluents at night. The smells that come out of these plants at night is absolutely insane. Like, of course, they're breaking all the rules, and Taiwan just refuses to enforce them because they don't want to hurt their economic output. So if they've given up on the environment, then let's just stop playing games. Just admit that the economic growth is more valuable than your biodiversity.
I think
stop playing.
I think most of the world has admitted that. With think like inability to like even like really put forward like drastic measures to curb climate change.
I was listening to The Economist today talking about that, and it was so frustrating. It's like they're like, "Oh yes, it's an existential crisis, but actually transitioning will be very costly, so we should just kind of take it a little bit slow," which means like doing nothing. More or less, they're like, the biggest thing for us right now is to switch to clean natural gas.
Yeah.
Really?
Clean coal. I mean, we'll figure it out once Florida's underwater.
It's like, I understand the perspective, but just admit that you don't care about it, and that, like, doing a half-ass effort and allowing a large proportion of the world to be submerged and lots of people to die is more important to you than actually, like, paying what you need to and sacrificing.
Well,
like,
just like most things, it's virtue signaling. They're saying, oh, we know that everyone says they care about the environment, so we're going to say we care about it too, but we're also going to concern troll about the economy.
Ugh.
Money's not real, folks.
All the progressives in America, quote-unquote progressives, who then turn around and buy electric vehicles that are powered by coal power plants is frankly astonishing.
I mean, you don't really have an option there, but I mean, they could be putting forward like some
ride a fucking bike instead of buying a Tesla.
Well, they could also put forward like meaningful public transportation infrastructure.
Absolutely.
It's
But
not,
again,
it's not going to pass. But
the same fucking issue is at stake though, because all that public transportation. This is what pisses me off about Taiwan. They're like, I bought a GoGo and I ride the MRT. I'm so eco-friendly. But excuse me, where the fuck is that GoGo's electricity, and where the fuck do you think the MRT is being powered from? Like, those are all being powered by coal plants or oil plants. Like, you think that you're actually avoiding it, and yeah, it may be true that the oil plant is like 10% more efficient than your 50cc scooter, like two-stroke scooter, but realistically, you're not really being eco-friendly.
It keeps the I've heard people make the argument that it keeps the cities slightly cleaner, which is, I suppose, somewhat true, but it's also kind of a cop-out argument.
I think that that's actually more dangerous, because the cleaner that the urban air is, the more prone people are to forget about the environmental impact of these things.
For sure.
Because instead, if all the oil plants are put in like Shaogang and Changhua, where no people live, they're just basically exporting their pollution to cities where less people are. They're not actually reducing their pollution output. So
no, for sure not. Well, it's okay. We'll figure it out once Taiwan gets hit with like the strongest typhoon that's ever happened. Like I said, once California is underwater.
The same shit with COVID, man, where they're like, well, I wrote an article recently about why quarantines are necessary, and it's literally the only reason why a handful of countries are still able to maintain basically zero COVID cases.
Yeah.
It's because they haven't like completely given up and been like, well, even though quarantines have been in place for 750 years and they've saved millions of people and they're proven to work, there's only one solution now that actually won't, quote unquote, harm the economy, and that's using 22% effective vaccines and mandating 70%, so that we go from 67 to 70, because that 3% is actually going to really make the difference this time, in case you didn't know that.
And if you get your third booster, then you never have to wear a mask again.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is also very scientific, to not wear, to like tell everyone they can just take off their masks, as if we haven't had millions of breakthrough infections.
I'm sorry to say this, but Anthony Fauci needs stuff.
I concur.
And I mean that figuratively, because I'm not pro. I mean hang himself by his words in a figurative, metaphorical sense.
He's already hung himself in his words.
The fact that he's still, quote unquote, Biden's chief medical advisor after fucking lying to the American people on record and failing Donald Trump, and then Biden is like, you know what? Let's just keep this fucking traitor on staff. Let's just keep this pathological liar who's responsible for like the deaths of millions of Americans and responsible for dozens of cases of unethical animal testing violations, and who's probably responsible, even though he lied to Congress about it, for gain-of-function research.
Sounds like you're anti-science, bud.
If you're against Anthony Fauci, you're against science.
This has been the worst year for Italians, I think, on record.
Why Joe Rogan and Fauci?
You got Rogan, you got Cuomo going down.
Cuomo.
Both of the Cuomos now. Fredo went down too. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, that's great.
Finally fired.
I love it.
Bye bye, Cuomo.
My biggest issue, if that's the way the world wants to play, that's fine. If you want to say, like, we're not willing to possibly sacrifice like 0.5% growth by forcing globe-trotting fucking elites to stop at the border for 2 weeks to save millions of lives, if we're not willing to do that, then just fucking say that. Say that human lives are not worth as much as rich people's time. But don't pretend that vaccines, the 22% effective vaccines, are the only solution. Please stop fucking pretending.
I don't know if they're 22%.
They are. That's the latest numbers out of South Africa.
22% against Omicron?
Yes. Which is now
effective, meaning what, though?
Effective meaning effective at preventing, I'm not sure, symptomatic. It doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't. I mean, it matters what you're saying, but I mean,
it doesn't, because that's one. First of all, the Omicron's been out for 2 weeks. So
right.
That data
we don't know. Yeah, that's
that
what I'm
data
saying.
Is bullshit. That data is on one vaccine, which is Pfizer. Okay. Mm-hmm. There are like 10 different vaccines. Everyone has a different dose. What would you say? Dose regimen. People have gotten different numbers of doses. People have different inherent immunity. I mean, it doesn't matter. Like, realistically, they're not particularly effective. people can still get the disease and spread it, which is the whole point of what they're saying is a public health.
Right.
It doesn't matter if you end up in the hospital. If you contract it, you can still spread it. And 78% of people will. Then shut the fuck up about telling me that that's the best way to control the disease. Because it's fucking not. You're fucking lying to our faces.
I think this is another thing I think is a big problem with this, is that people get their wires crossed about why it's important, why vaccines could be important. I think
they're important to protect yourself, and
yes,
literally nothing fucking else.
That's the point that people should keep in mind, though. It's like it doesn't. That's why it blew my mind when they were like, "Oh, if you get your vaccine, you can take your mask off." That's what I was mentioning earlier. It's like it doesn't stop the spread.
Anyone who says that deserves to get Omicron. Like 3 times.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's absurd, obviously. But yeah, I think that's the thing. And then people, like everything else, get into their little camps and they're like, "Well, I'm team vaccine now, and so like I'm just gonna everything can be solved by vaccines." And it's not the case, as we've seen with numerous breakthroughs. I do think it's good for people to get vaccinated, like you said.
If people want to get vaccinated, of course. Like it was relatively effective against the early strains 2 years ago.
Yeah, if we maybe if we just would have like I've been saying since the beginning, lock down and pay people to stay home for 2 weeks, and then like you said, do these quarantine measures and wear your fucking mask.
All of those things needed to be done in tandem, not like we never fucking actually instituted an enforceable quarantine rule, which is why the 2-week lockdowns had no fucking effect whatsoever.
Because they weren't real, and neither were like these travel bans that they announced an Omicron travel ban, and it's like it's just too late. It's not too late.
It doesn't matter anyways, because as long as citizens can come back in, the citizens will fucking spread it around the country. So what if people who are like South African citizens can't get to the United States? The 10,000 Americans can, and those are the ones who are gonna fucking spread it. So shut the fuck up.
No, Americans are very responsible. They will do, even though we don't make them stay home. They will stay home. Of course, they won't go out. They won't go to the comedy show and take off their masks and spit in each other's mouths. Wouldn't do that. Americans are very, very responsible. They really care about their fellow citizens.
Nobody fucking does anymore. So let's just admit that society's dead. That we're ready for our civilization to be over. Nobody's actually willing to sacrifice. Making as much money as possible in the next 2 to 3 years is the most important fucking thing. And if the human race is gone in 5, nobody gives a shit. Just admit that. Let's just be real about it.
Let's burn it down, folks.
I mean, we don't have to burn it down. That's literally the choice that we made, is that we are ready to have our civilization end.
I didn't make that choice.
Well,
the elites made that choice, I feel like.
Americans made it when they fucking didn't ask for more from their leaders. When they're like, "Oh, this is the best we can do. Now let's go fucking to spring break and take our masks off and film videos of ourselves screaming at Walmart employees."
Yeah.
Like, Americans collectively made that fucking decision. We can blame our leaders, but I think people collectively have just given up. We're just ready to all die.
Well, people are also easily like I said, put into camps and divided, and it's fun to be in your little tribe and scream at people online and pretend that makes any sort of fucking difference, besides allowing the rich and powerful to grab even more money and power.
I get that, but when literally you have like an this one, we're lucky that this pandemic killed 0.5% of people who are infected. The next time when it's 50% and the world does exactly the same thing, that could be the end of our fucking species. This is like an existential thing, as is climate change.
Just wait for the next variant, bud.
Wait for the next what?
Wait for the next variant. Because we're gonna get more. Like there will be more.
Of course we will. And Taiwan is gonna be. I said yesterday to you, and I'm not sure, but we'll see after the next election. I think they're going to be biting at the fucking heels to be like, you know what, these quarantine rules have gone on too long, and we need to open it up to the world again. If
they look at the data, they won't. But I'm not.
They haven't been looking at the data in any decision making they've been doing for the past 6 months.
I don't think that's a fair statement. But in
terms of vaccines, it looks apparent since they gave the vaccines to people who they're not meant for by international standards.
That I agree with you on some of the vaccine stuff, especially because they basically took secondhand vaccines from everyone. I feel like that's a little bit different. But for a lot of other things, they have been, like mask wearing, like contact tracing, things like that. So, but I agree with you. I share your apprehension about what they will do for to please the elites, because that's always what comes first.
Elites and nightclubs. Thanks.
All right. What was the other one? Which ones did we talk about? We haven't talked about the nuclear. We got on this because we were talking about the referendums.
We talked about nuclear and we talked about climate change a little, but yeah, there was the referendum about restarting the fourth nuclear plant, which I thought it was really interesting that basically a lot of the DPP strongholds voted against the DPP proposals, which is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Our correspondent Abby sent a graphic which showed the different localities, and it's really interesting that all the DPP strongholds voted against the DPP agenda on almost every single issue, literally, like Kaohsiung, Tainan, Pingdong, Jiayi County, every single one of them voted against. And not only that, what was really interesting is that KMT strongholds like Hualien and Taitung also voted against it, every single one.
No.
Which is weird that there's basically like, let me look at the graphic. I think it was Taipei, Taichung. Was it Taipei? Let me look. So it's basically Taipei, Jilong, Hsinchu, Taoyuan, Miaoli, Nantou. Sorry, Hualien and Taitung did follow the DPP on this, which is weird. So the ones who followed, who are typically DPP strongholds who went against the DPP on this, were Taichung, pretty much on everything. Kaohsiung, Tainan, Changhua, Yunlin, Jiayi, Jiayi Jiayishi, Pingdong, and Yilan. So basically, most DPP voters actually voted 100% against the DPP's agenda on every single referendum.
I wonder if is it that actually DPP voters, or is it just voters in those strongholds?
Voters in those strongholds.
So
This one doesn't split up the voters. It's just those cities, those are all DPP strongholds. Those are 65+%.
Yeah. With 39% turnout, though, it's feasible that a majority of those voters were pan blue.
Maybe.
But I don't know. I haven't seen a breakdown. I've heard people saying that young people didn't show out that much. But I haven't seen exact numbers on anything.
And by the way, you know the strongest constituency in support of all the DPP measures was?
What was that?
Two. Ximen and Matsu. Ximen and Matsu were the strongest in favor of all the DPP measures.
So they voted no on everything?
They voted yes, which is what the...
No. DPP is vote
DPP
no.
No. Sorry,
yeah.
I'm confused. Okay, I'm totally confused. Never mind. I flipped it totally around.
Yeah,
Thanks, Jordan.
It's confusing because it's like a double negative. Yeah, but Green wanted no on everything.
Right. So yeah, I've got it completely backwards. So yeah, Jimen, Matsu, and Hualien all voted yes on all of these, so they did follow. Okay, so that's not that weird actually.
Okay. Yeah. So
there's nothing weird at all.
Normal election, folks. But yeah, it really doesn't seem to matter because
this is normal partisan split, actually. This is completely expected. Thanks for pointing that out and not making me look like a total friggin' idiot.
No worries. That's what I do.
Delete the last 5 minutes.
Will do.
Just kidding. Just put it out there so that I remember that I'm so stupid.
It is confusing though, and they do that a lot.
I just got it mixed up in my head.
I know, because it's like it's a basically
no question.
Well, it's also basically a DPP election, and they want you to vote no on everything. You would think if they would form the questions to say like vote yes on everything, but I don't know. I find these referendums often poorly worded and quite confusing. It could be because my Mandarin is not good enough, but I think it is quite confusing, which a lot of Taiwanese people said in the 2018 referendum, and also the same-sex marriage referendum. So I don't know.
I don't know either, bud. Anyway.
Confusing.
Is that all of them? Did we cover all of them? The nuclear plant, the pork, the
we did.
linking, and then the algae thing.
Yeah, we talked about.
Yeah, so I thought that there was actually surprising stuff here, but because I completely read it backwards, there's nothing surprising so far as I can tell. I think all the DPP strongholds voted exactly what the DPP wanted, and vice versa. Taoyuan voted completely KMT on this, though.
That's
yes on everything.
A bit surprising, but
Taichung was mostly DPP on these, and everything else was just kind of like down party lines.
Yeah, Taoyuan is an interesting case because actually it's kind of a blue stronghold, but their mayor is green. So Winston is pretty green actually, but he's quite popular, even with like some blue people.
Nantou is also an interesting one. Nantou went hard blue on this. Nanto being fairly far south is typically like more. They're definitely not like a DPP stronghold, I wouldn't say. But let me look at the last election. But they do have a lot of Aboriginals who tend to vote
Blue.
KMT. Yeah. Well, I got a lot of other news. If you want to move on,
Hit it,
anything else
boy.
to say?
I don't really have much to say. I think it was. I would really like to see in the future them focus on issues that actually are pertinent to like the average citizens. I mean, energy is, but it's also kind of a little bit like a little bit removed from people's normal lives. I want to see things on like, and it's probably hard to word a referendum question around some of these, but like making housing more affordable and
Yeah.
things like that that are actually going to have an impact on people's everyday lives.
Well, with the nuclear thing, I wrote a report on the nuclear thing, so I know that there's been a lot of push for that for a long time, and the KMT already tried this in the previous election, so they just keep trying to push this over and over and over again.
Well, they've been pushing the actual port thing since basically they started meeting about it. The reason that they're doing that, again, this is another reason why I'm kind of ambivalent about it, is to try to get a trade deal with the U.S.
Yeah,
it's one of it's but just for everyone listening. So
I forgot about them.
Ari always forgets about you. But
only most of the time.
But yeah, it's so I don't know. I think if there was like a bilateral trade agreement, that would be pretty sick. So
that'd be sick, man.
So that's why I'm like, whatever, you want to import your pork, I'm not going to eat it anyway. So whatever.
I think this should just ban pork altogether. I think that's probably the best.
That's fair, but also but my whole point in saying that is because the KMT has been marching around the legislature throwing pig intestines around for the past couple of years.
Big ways. That's weird. I wonder what that sound was.
There's a wolf outside our house.
Hang on 1 second. Let me go check on that.
Hey there, little dog. What's your problem? What you doing?
Anyway, just that these are kind of similar to, if listeners follow U.S. politics, which if you follow this, you probably have heard a decent amount. It's just kind of these like culture war issues that like don't really have a big impact on people, and that's my main thing. I wish that in both of these countries there could be a actual workers' party that like
the workers' party
that fought for the people and maybe had like a sick logo, like a some sort of mallet and maybe like a sickle or something. Just kidding.
I think that would be really nice if we had more choice, but unfortunately, Americans are stuck with the two-party system because they refuse to enact
ranked choice voting.
Right, Poppy? Oh. By the way, it's not Poppy like the Puerto Rican poppy. It's like
hello, Poppy.
It's like poppy seed. Okay, folks. Like it's short for Poppington.
Poppington, Lord Poppington. It's because Ari loves poppy seed muffins because he enjoys failing opiate tests.
I don't think that's real.
I heard, yeah, I think it's kind of an urban legend. I think you'd have to eat so much that it would be ridiculous. I do love lemon poppy seed muffins, though.
I love Seinfeld too.
Hell yeah. Next.
Chile. What do you think of that? Chile.
I think it is a little chilly today.
You haven't been following that? You've been talking about it a lot.
No. Who's they?
The lamestream media. Is that what
national elites. Yeah, they're really focused on the Chilean election. They had a runoff, and the two major candidates are essentially a communist and a Nazi.
Sounds like Chile, honestly.
It literally, I'm not exaggerating. The guy on the left, he has the endorsement of the Communist Party, and the guy on the right's father immigrated in 1950 and was a member of the Nazi Party since he turned 18. So,
jeez.
Not the guy himself is not a Nazi. His father was a Nazi, and the other one's not a communist, but he's endorsed by the communists. So it's like as close as you can get to that in the modern age. It's basically far right and far left, and yeah, it actually resembles in a lot of ways the United States because it's a country with pretty high inequality and pretty like neoliberal institutions, and because people are upset, there's been a lot of street protests that there's kind of destabilized the city centers, and because of that, there's kind of a knee-jerk reaction by a lot of people who are obsessed with stability to lean towards the right, because the idea is we're going to clean up the streets, this kind of nonsense.
It's interesting because that guy's dad being a Nazi, that's exactly what the Nazi Party did in Germany.
On the other hand, the far leftist guy, he's like 35 years old, and that's not like a bash against his age, but
Ageist.
I'm younger than he is. The idea is that I don't think he can realistically get through most of the policies that he promises. In a lot of ways, that Bernie Sanders, I loved past tense Bernie Sanders, but yeah, it's hard getting excited when you're faced with an institutional structure that won't allow you to make a lot of big changes for either of them.
Yeah, for the most part, I think that's true.
It's a really interesting race to watch, though, and what they said is that it's extremely close right now. So they both got like 23%, 20, somewhere around 25%, and now they're both facing each other in the runoff, and it's going to come down very close. Like the polls are within the margin of error. But what they're also saying is they're rewriting the Constitution, and they might just have another election next year anyways, because they're going to change the presidential role. So it may not make a big difference. People are just like talking about it. People love these big, like, epic battles.
They do. That's true.
It's symbolic.
Especially if you can, like, graft your ideology onto it.
That just reminded me of a story that I forgot to talk about, which is about Olaf Scholz and Annalena Baerbock.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
I'm glad we brought it up. So what do you think about this? Because it looks like she's going to take a much harder line against China.
I am, like a lot of things recently on China, I'm hopeful that they will actually stick to their word, but I'm a little bit skeptical.
I'm skeptical too, but I think this is a smart thing, because he can let her kind of take the lead and be like, well, she's not in my party, so I don't have full control over her. And then she can kind of do what she wants on that, but it remains to be seen.
I hope so. I mean, Merkel was famously pretty weak on China, so I do hope they do something. I mean, everyone's about to help whitewash China's image by joining in the Beijing 2022 Olympics. So
before we talk about the boycott, which I'm sure we will, the one other thing was the Nord Stream pipeline, which I think everyone except Annalena Baerbock's Green Party was basically in favor. Do you know the Nord Stream?
Yeah.
It gives them a lot of power, and it gives Russia a lot of power here, and a lot of countries and a lot of people are saying that they got to put a stop to this before it's completed, because it will allow Russia to essentially blackmail Europe every winter to just threaten to strangle it, because after that's done, it will just increase dependence, because the idea is it gives them a lot of power. And what they could do is they could just drop energy prices for the next 3 to 4 years, starve out all of the domestic producers, bankrupt them, and then after that, they'll have no competitors, and they can monopolize the market and use political capital to wreck them. And what was super interesting, I saw today, is that this actually has implications for the United States. So today there was an issue with Ted Cruz, your favorite.
Oh, yeah.
Ted Cruz tried to pass a bill. He tried to bring a bill that's definitely going to fail, because Democrats are against it, to sanction anyone who participates in the Nord Stream pipeline, which will fuck up U.S.-German relations, well, depending on what the new government does.
Right.
And, of course, the Republicans weren't going to let it come, but as part of an agreement to let some other bills come to, some judicial nominations come to votes, they agreed to let Ted Cruz try and run this bill to sanction anyone who participates in the Nord Stream pipeline. Wow. Which I don't know how you feel about that, but I'm anti-Nord Stream, because
anti-Nord Stream. I don't know if that's the way to go about it, but I would be willing to hear out the argument.
Well, it could scuttle U.S.-German relations to some extent, but I think Germany is realistically, like, a NATO member. The whole point of NATO is to protect against formerly Soviet, now kind of Russian expansionism in a military alliance, and to, in a very vulnerable region, to basically allow an enemy state to control your entire energy supply like that is a very dangerous thing. And I think that the United States, if they want to, for fuck's sake, Russia invaded a sovereign country. Russia is...
Well, they're
a rogue state right now.
They're also increasing tensions with Ukraine right now.
Yeah, that's another thing. They're like amassing troops at the border, and I still don't think they will invade. But I think that they just want attention, and they want concessions from the United States. They want them to lighten the sanctions. They want them to stop talking about the Crimea thing. They want to just go back to the way things were. And the United States, I don't think, needs to do any of those fucking things because they're not going to invade Ukraine. It would be disastrous for them.
Maybe. Or it could just be like Crimea.
It won't be like Crimea because most of the population of Crimea were Russian. They identified as Russians.
Yeah.
Ukraine, there would be a fucking insurgency.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be a disaster. And from the polling I've seen, most Russians wanted them to annex Crimea. Most of them do not want them to. This would be disastrous for them politically at home because most Russians would be like, why don't we're already having a hard enough time. COVID is destroying our economies. Hasn't grown in like 10 fucking years.
Yeah, their mortality rates have been skyrocketing.
And then for them to start a war to capture some random territory and like expand Russian territory to a group that doesn't want to be a part of them.
Yeah.
Fuck their economy even more. Like, why would you do that? It doesn't make any sense. I don't think it's gonna happen. So I think they're just trying to extract concessions from this, and I think sanctioning them might be the ticket to like. I don't think it's gonna push Putin out of power, but this is gonna definitely threaten his interests like majorly.
I think it's gonna be pretty hard to push Putin out of power.
Yeah. But this, I mean, eventually it's gonna come to a point where like the oligarchs have nowhere else to go. They need to be like, okay, we need to look like we're doing something because our currency has been depreciating for the past fucking 2 decades.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, Myanmar survived under that brutal sanctions regime for decades.
Yeah. I mean, and there's the junta is still going strong currently.
I heard that they're trying to put some new sanctions against them, but I feel like the previous sanctions should have just immediately kicked back into place.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I don't know. That's a big mess that it seems like a lot of people have forgotten about, but it's definitely not over.
All these issues are so connected, and it's really interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think of the boycott? To get back to that before I forget it.
Boycott of
the Olympics, this diplomatic.
Oh, the diplomatic. You're talking about the U.S.'s diplomatic. I think it's a little bit of a weak half measure, but
it definitely is.
I'd say it's better than nothing, but it's not impressive to me.
What I was very disappointed about was, well, first of all, Australia, I think the UK, Japan are following suit. You know who's not?
Germany.
Oh, yeah, Germany. But another one, South Korea.
Oh, interesting.
They are. It's difficult to criticize their politics because I'm not South Korean, but they're fucking delusional. Because what I heard the explanation is that they think that they need Chinese support in order to pressure North Koreans to help them sign a peace treaty, which will grant them absolutely fucking nothing.
Yeah, as if the North Koreans aren't exactly what China wants, just some weird, crazy rogue actor that they can make them look a little bit more normal.
The worst thing is, if they do sign a peace treaty, what I heard is that this is I think Republicans have been pushing also is that South Korea should not sign a peace treaty because it gives China leverage for them to try and push United States troops out of South Korea, which basically just opens them up to another invasion from North Korea since they did it once before, and their alliance with China has done nothing but grow over the past 70 years. It's a disastrous move. And by the way, we've gotten no fucking concessions out of North Korea ever, and we never will. North Korea will not stop until they've taken over the peninsula.
Yeah, I tend to not imagine that North Korea is in any position to do an invasion of South Korea, but
with China backing with and U.S. troops out.
Possible. I don't know that China would back that like full, at least not full-throatedly. I don't think they would throw troops and things like that behind it because then they're implicated as well. I don't see that happening, but it's possible. And I agree with you that they basically have gotten no concessions from the North Koreans.
It's delusional to think that there ever will be concessions. It's a big fucking joke.
I mean, there could be eventually, but not with Kim in power still. And what comes after him will
be another Kim. I mean,
most likely, if he can have children, if he's not completely impotent.
I think he already has children.
Does he?
I think so, but it's hard to know what's true and not true out there.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
I think it's a joke, and I think that South Korea is sucking China's dick to get half. Listen. You trying to get concessions on them to sign a peace treaty? How about getting them to stop North Korea from fucking we're fighting more nuclear fuel. Like North Korea is at this point they have almost as many nuclear weapons as France does. Like, please fucking save me with that virtuous nonsense. The idea that you're going to create this kind of peaceful setting when your next door neighbor, who literally invaded you 2 generations ago, is on a nuclear proliferation spree faster than any country you've ever seen in world history.
Yeah, I would say, as always, I think it's good to try to like sit down and talk these things out, but you can't give yeah, that's what I'm saying. You can't give concessions before you get something in return. So I'm all for diplomacy first and as much as possible, and always avoiding like conflict. But you also can't just like give concessions without actually getting anything in return, because then it just rewards these fucking psychotic leaders and says, "Oh well, they're just going to give me shit for nothing for me acting like a psycho. I'm going to get my way." It's like a petulant child.
100% agree, and that has literally been the disaster of American foreign policy with North Korea for the past 3 decades. Is that they always make promises. We always make promises. We always keep ours, and North Korea never does. And it's been the same mistake since before we were born with this regime. They always make big fucking promises, and people are always like, "Wow, this is the time when they're really gonna come out of their shell." And here we are, fucking 2021, and North Korea is one of the only 7 out of 192 recognized states by the UN or whatever. One of the 7 no nuclear states in the world.
Yeah.
Like self-proclaimed, because there are some that are, we know, like Israel, that still maintain the policy of ambiguity.
Yeah. Well, they thinking that a kid who's literally grown up from a child thinking that he's a god is going to make some like rational decision and like give up some of his power is kind of idiotic, I think. But fight will continue to happen, unfortunately.
Another thing was a little bit related to that is the negotiations about the Iran deal. And what I was thinking recently is that this has big implications. Personally, I don't think that either the U.S. or Israel has an interest in Iran actually denuclearizing. Because if you look at the diplomatic overtures made between Israel and the Sunni states in the Arab world over the last 20 years, it has basically solved like 60% of like the Middle East crisis that's been going on since the 1950s. Israel has better relations with the Gulf states than they have ever had before. Like, most of these states who formerly went to war with them are now their allies because they share a common enemy, Iran. And by denuclearizing Iran, that eliminates that common enemy, which eliminates their incentive to cooperate. So I actually think for the U.S. and Israeli elites, it's not in their interest to denuclearize Iran right now, and that's why we basically just seen this faltering.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, this goes against both the interests of the people of both the U.S. and Israel, who both are threatened by Iran, who's basically called for the destruction of those 2 states with nuclear weapons before, and called for nuclear Armageddon, in the hopes that basically Emirati money, will flow into the coffers of the elites of those 2 states. And you've seen it with Donald Trump, like basically scuttling the Iran deal and then raking in a shitload of money from both the Emiratis and the Saudis.
Well, and Biden's also trying to push through a weapons deal with the Saudis.
It's a giant. That's just like state money. But imagine all the money that the elite who push these guys are making.
Oh yeah.
Just raking in this money from increased relations and cooperation. So what interest do they have in eliminating the common enemy? The only thing that's like forcing them to cooperate at this point. So that's my theory, and there's no way to prove it, but I think it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think it's logical. I saw a story out of Australia that Badial Tal, the artist.
Is he in Australia?
Yeah. He's good question. I'm not sure, but I know he's based out of Australia.
Allen. Maybe Melbourne.
But he was trying to get some of his artwork put up on billboards, and one of the billboard companies refused to do it because they were afraid of angering China and hurting their business. Yeah, which is not surprising, but it shows how long of a reach that China has.
Long reach. Yes, they're long fingers.
I saw. I don't remember. Let me try to find this real quick. There was a university um, that some Chinese student spoke out, and other Chinese students were reporting him to the CCP, and this was outside of China.
Yeah, that's not surprising though.
Yeah, but what was surprising is that the school came out and said you're not going to do this. Yeah, okay, so is that at Purdue? So the Purdue president came out.
Wait, Purdue's in the U.S.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought this was in Australia.
No. This is a different story. It does happen in Australia as well, but I haven't heard anyone like really strongly speak out. Like there was the whole Drew Pavlov's dog or whatever his name is.
Drew Pavlov's dog.
I'm just kidding. That's the first thing that came to mind. What's his last name? Pavlo?
I forget.
I don't know. Anyway, I think he's also running for elected office there. There's actually a number of anti-CCP, like young, slightly like left, I guess, like more like working class minded candidates running in Australia, and I would like to like look through them and learn more about some of them. Like Drew, I know because he's like so online.
Drew Pavlov's dog.
Yeah, but there was like 4 or 5 others, and I think some of them are like Uyghur, like of Uyghur descendant and stuff like that. They have of Uyghur background and things like that. So that will be interesting to see. But anyway, so the Purdue president. So it says Zhao Kong is probably Gong Zhao would be my guess is how that actually is probably pronounced. A student at Purdue University and Chinese citizen faced substantial harassment from fellow Chinese students for speaking out in support of the protesters killed in the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre. And then, yeah, like I said, they were reporting him, and I guess the president spoke out and said, this is his quote, "Any such intimidation is unacceptable and unwelcome on our campus. Purdue has punished less personal, direct, and threatening conduct." So that's good to see that they're like trying to uphold freedom of speech at these universities.
I think that that's a commendable thing to say, but from a practical perspective, these complaints are between Chinese students and the local like diplomatic ministries. There's no way that the university will ever be able to prove that any of that kind of conduct ever took place. So realistically, there's no way to actually enforce it. Unfortunately,
it's true. I mean,
because it's not like the ministry, the embassy is gonna come out and be like, "Hey, guess who snitched on this student?"
Yeah.
Like those conversations are all had in private, and
yeah, it seems like they kind of admit that, saying like if students who issue threats can be identified, then they'll
if they directly issue a threat. But I think most of them are probably smart enough not to fucking do that.
Man, I think probably most of them are, but I having gone to school with a lot of Chinese nationals, a number of them I think don't understand how, especially when they're new to the U.S. And this is obviously painting with a very broad brush. So there's obviously a broad range of different kinds of Chinese students, but a lot of them seem to not understand like the differences in terms of the U.S. and China, and how it's like actually weird, like just because they were born and raised in the propaganda. So like I think I've probably said this on the podcast before, but I remember I took a survey of Asian history class, and the students would like fight with the university professor over like Chinese history. Yeah, they would like get up and like, yell at him in class, like, "No, this is not what our history books say." And he's like, "Well, you're just wrong." He's like, "I'm sorry, like you feel that way, but like you're just wrong. Like this is what the history is. Like we have like primary sources on this that show that this is the truth."
Mm-hmm.
And they would just get furious with him and be like, "This professor doesn't know what he's talking about." Blah blah blah. So I don't know. I think some of them, maybe all that to say, like some of them might think that they still live in China and like speak out and make threats directly. You look at what happened with Pablo, and I always forget how to say his name. Anyway, in Australia, they were like screaming at him and like people were like pushing him and stuff on campus. Some of these like really pro CCP nationalist students, and that was in another country. It was in Australia, so I don't know. and that kind of stuff definitely needs to be punished.
I've definitely had arguments with Chinese students before, like that took over the class. I've told you about.
I used to have a roommate that was a Chinese national, and we were like best friends. But if we talked about Taiwan, we would get in like screaming matches.
I
Like, it would
recorded one of them. I think
always
I
ended up
sent
funny.
it to you.
Oh yeah, you did.
Oh,
You
that
did. Yeah.
Xinjiang one.
Yeah.
It took over the whole class.
Yeah. Some, and again, this is like there are a lot of Chinese students that just go abroad and just study and keep their head down. They're not interested in politics, but just like everywhere, there are like people that are nationalists that are like very outspoken. Yeah, and obviously the two countries, in terms of like your level of freedom of speech, are quite different.
Yeah, I would have liked to have got that one that I mentioned before. I don't want to give any of his details because he's back there right now to come talk to us because he was a little bit, let's just say, more free thinking.
Okay.
He was definitely like aware and critical of some aspects of the regime.
Yeah, I've definitely met both.
Communist Youth League Party, Communist Party Youth League member.
Wow.
And now he's like willing to criticize the state and its actions. Interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty big growth, I would say, from like an indoctrination Boy Scouts into like being able to like question your own government. But good for him. Good for them. What else you got, buddy?
Do you have more? I just got one discussion thing. I'll just mention really quick. Apparently, the Ethiopian War. I think that because the Tigray Liberation Front largely left the Tigray region, a lot of the ethnic groups in the surrounding areas kind of saw that as a Tigray invasion, and it kind of swelled the government forces' troop numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And they've also been buying weapons from like a whole host of countries all over the world and getting some Western aid, which means that they've kind of been, I wouldn't say beating them back, but they've pushed them pretty far back. It looks like the capital is going to hold.
Mm-hmm.
Just an update on Ethiopia.
Yeah, on that developing situation. Hopefully that cools down, because that seems like it's turning into quite the ethnic conflict.
Yeah, they've been spending food aid to the north for a long time, and this is the Abiy Ahmed won the Nobel Peace Prize like last year, so it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, you get the head of the WHO from there too.
Yep. Well, he's Fabricius is from the rebel party.
Yeah, he's Tigrayan.
He's not only Tigrayan, his political party is the Tigray People's Liberation Front, which is actively fighting a civil war. So his party is technically engaged in a civil war against the national government,
right.
And yet he's the head of one of the most important international organizations right now.
That's crazy.
Well, it just goes to show what a joke the UN is, what a joke the WHO is, and all of these institutions who really don't care about these issues at all. They just do a lot of grandstanding and never get anything done.
Elites. That's what it is. It's elites. Yeah. Creating smoke screens, I would say in a lot of cases. Oh, there was a story that
No.
I hope not, but that China is going to be paying U.S. influencers to pump up the Beijing 2022 Olympics to whitewash their bloody history. We mentioned the Olympics earlier, so I thought I'd throw that in there too. That's about all I had to say. They're paying.
I wonder which influencers.
It will be interesting to see. I'm
I
sure.
wonder how much the Kardashians are going to get for this.
Hi, I'm Chloe, and I am here to show my new lip balm and say that actually ethnic cleansing is not that bad.
Aren't they Armenian or something like that?
I think so. I think they're supposed to be, but I don't know.
That would be ironic.
Well, who knows what they'll do. I did see that Kim Kardashian passed the baby bar.
What does that mean?
I don't know what that means. And I didn't want to read the articles because I didn't care enough. So I don't really know why I'm mentioning it here, but you made me think of it with the Kim Kardashian line, or with the Kardashians line. And then she also said that she's a little bit of both parties when it comes to the Democrats and Republicans. And she's probably going to try to come into politics, which is another nightmare.
Well,
Less celebrities in politics, please.
Her parents Well, is it her parent or her step parent?
I think it's their step parent, but I'm not sure.
That gender. Yeah, I mean, why not? Now that it lost the governor race.
Yeah.
That's another disastrous
Totally
election
failed.
structure.
Yeah. Because Gavin Newsom fucked up ranked choice voting.
Yeah, fuck Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
One of the things I just saw really fast, I just wanted to mention this, I forgot to mention this, is that, again, these terrible, like, scientific coverage of, news media coverage of the science here,
Mm-hmm.
is I saw that they're doing comparisons, so they're like, on one hand, like, in the United States, a lot of the American press is like, Omicron is ridiculous, New York has its highest numbers ever, and we're in for a big disaster, and then the same day, if you look at the international press, you look at South Africa, and like, Omicron's not a big deal. Hospitalizations are way down.
Yeah.
And one thing that I thought of, which is a preposterous thing to compare Omicron in those two places, is the seasons. So New York is right now, it's almost New Year's. Like, they're in the dead of winter.
Yeah.
Everyone is spending all their time indoors. Their immune systems are compromised. It's like, this is a winter disease. South Africa is literally on the opposite, like, the pole right now. They're in the heart of summer right now.
Yeah.
So, of course, respiratory infections and the spread of these are, of course, going to come down during summer. So it's like really hard to compare the situations in two countries on the opposite side of the world when they're in opposite seasons. And I think that the fact that that's not mentioned is journalistic negligence.
Also, like you said before, it's way early in the life cycle of this variant to like really say a whole ton about what it's really going to be like.
Oh, I forgot to mention this in the last one. This pissed me off. I totally forgot this. Is whatever is pronounced XI, the Greek letter XI, that the World Health Organization, because of, I don't know, Xi Jinping, because of the Xi family in China, they passed by it because they said that there are how many, because China doesn't have that many surnames. They're like, there are millions of people with this surname, and we don't want to create any issues regarding feelings about this.
What about the Greek family that Omicron's that live down the street from us?
I'm going to look on the WHO website, and if they have anything about Ebola right now, I'm going to freak out.
Yeah, I was going to say they also skipped over new, but new makes sense because this is a novel virus. So, like, that makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me, but it is kind of infuriating.
I'm going to look up Ebola WHO to see if they've renamed it in order to prevent the poor people from the Ebola River, which is a nonsense argument anyways. Nope, Ebola virus disease. So WHO, please stop virtue signaling and pretending like you care about like people's feelings or about creating associations between places and diseases. You don't. Okay, so let's just call this what it should be really named, which is the Xi variant. Which is what we're going to refer to it from now on.
The Winnie the Pooh virus. Yeah, that's ridiculous. All right, what's the discussion question? I'm sure I got a million other little stories, but we can just move on.
I mean, if you got any others, it's okay.
I have to go through.
You don't have to go through. NFTs of the future. Change my mind.
No, you're right. Totally. It is the future because we're heading towards a dark, horrible, bleak future where elites control all the money and we all just starve while they trade pictures of fucking goats in hats smoking cigarettes.
Did you say hats smoking cigarettes? I
said goats in hats smoking cigarettes. They're the worst. I mean, NFTs, I don't know.
What do you think of the role of Twitter in basically popularizing this nonsense? Because I think Twitter is largely responsible. I wouldn't say like more than 50%, but they have played a large role in the popularization of both the culture and like the kind of name recognition that a lot of these cryptocurrencies and NFTs have gotten. I think that Twitter and this kind of bizarre elite subculture that like urban elites have created, this like festering cesspool of incestuous sick culture. I fucking hate Twitter. What do you think about that? Do you think that it's played a large role? Because I feel like it does, but I don't spend that much time on Twitter.
I mean, there's definitely a lot of discussion about it, and like literally almost if you see any tweet with like over a couple hundred likes on it, if you scroll to the bottom under like I will say that a lot of them get hidden, but if you show additional replies, there's always
That's in my crypto
yeah,
scheme.
there's always someone that like
I didn't believe it either. I made $10 million in crypto. You can do it too with these 3 easy steps. First one, sign your bank account over to me.
it's yeah. So I mean yes, but I also see some things like that on YouTube, and I have
know what I meant. I meant like people like Elon Musk doing pump and dumps that were largely. Twitter was largely the vector for their ability to get his audience and get them to jump on board and basically censor everyone who's like, Elon, shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
I mean, Elon, you're violating SEC rules.
I don't know how much they.
Elon, you're tanking the Tesla stock.
I don't know how much they like censor the people going after Elon, but
Elon, your hair plugs are falling out.
And I just really want him to be the beta testing subject for that neural link.
He definitely will be.
Oh my god, I hope so. I hope it shorts. That's all I have to say. I hope it's just like on TV and he's like, "This is my new neural link. Time to power it on."
That reminds me.
It's getting too hot, Elon. Turn it off. It's okay.
I watched with Olivia this weird show where like it's like some way in the future where people upload their consciousness.
Oh, Teletubbies. to telephones, to television screens, the bellies of little soft animals.
No. To like this online interface, and this guy tries to download it, and that's exactly what happens. They're like, oh, we've created a way where now you can not only upload your consciousness when you die, but download it back into a fresh body for you. And they download it into this like donor body, and he's just like, something feels wrong, and his head explodes everywhere. It's a brutal show, man. But it's like really thought-provoking in a kind of childish way. I forget the name of it.
Is it called Black Mirror?
No. It's really silly. It's like almost like a rom-com with grappling with some serious topics.
Is it British?
That
sounds like a British show.
It's not British. It's very American. Let me find the name for anyone who's interested. I'll show you one of the scenes. I was watching it with Olivia and I was horrified at like the first 10 minutes. It's like basically, yeah, I won't show you on here, but I'll show you in a second. What's the name of it? People upload consciousness. It's called Upload. Wow, that was really difficult to find. I'll show you the first 10 minutes. You'll be like, what the fuck is this? Upload. It's disturbing. It's Greg Daniels, which is like, I think that's the guy from The Office.
Yeah, I don't know who that is, but
the guy who the producer of The Office.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, NFTs suck.
Yeah, they do. They suck.
Except for the FCP NFT.
Yeah, we're gonna create our own NFT.
You just have to well, we've already created it, folks. It's just a little bit secret, but it's only for our podcast listeners. And if you join our Patreon at $100 a month, we will send you one FCP pound every month for eternity until you stop donating.
We can also send you these things called
No, you don't need anything physical.
No, there's this other thing called PNFTs, and they're like an NFT, but they're like actually a physical picture, and there's only one that you take with a film camera. It's really cool new invention.
I think people are like not interested in things they can touch.
I'm really like existential, bro. Like I don't like to touch stuff.
I like to live in the metaverse.
Oh man, that's so funny, that Facebook metaverse stuff where Zuckerberg pretends like he like talks to people or has friends. He's like, "Hey Sarah, good to see you here."
Wait, what?
You haven't seen the video?
Not.
You can Google it.
Well,
just like
me and Jordan will watch this.
Facebook metaverse
Along with the first 10
advertisement.
minutes of upload.
It's horrible, man.
Let's watch both of these.
It's and also there's no way people are gonna go for it. It's like Cartoonville. You could just do it with any VR headset. Also, VR doesn't have
like
high
an
enough.
FB branded VR system.
It's the metaverse that they're talking about.
What does that mean? Like
It's yeah, basically it's like you can buy property there. You can like pay money to artists to like
Life.
watch, basically. Yeah,
Neopets.
yeah, but with the VR headset. But the thing is
Neopets with VR.
the uptake, the uptake of VR is not very
Pokemon
high.
Go. Fuck. That's,
Pokemon go to the polls.
sorry, that's AR. My mistake.
Yeah, the augmented reality, not virtual reality. Jeez, get your technology straight.
I remember when on Second Life, people were like selling Second Life manufactured clothing.
Oh yeah,
Even in Minecraft, like there's a virtual economy around this. So like the notion of NFTs or imaginary universes that will have boom and bust cycles of their own are not new. So let's just stop.
Oh no, I
pretending
mean,
they are.
you want to learn about like virtual economies? People should look into like World of Warcraft. That stuff.
Oh heck yeah,
Crazy.
bruh.
Dude, my mage is level 99.
I don't know. I've
that.
never played World of Warcraft before. All I know is Leroy Jenkins. That's the one thing I know.
You want to get out of here?
Might as well.
Let's watch these killer videos.
All right, folks. I'll try to post all the links in the description box. You all remember, go to our Patreon. Give us money. We'll give you PNFTs, physical non-fungible tokens.
Or if you donate $100 a month, $100 a month, we will give you an FCP pound every month, and you can use that to buy any number of FCP related memorabilia.
You can use it to buy. You can use the FC pound to buy NFTs on our website. So there you go.
It's the coin of the future, if we're just being honest. So like the FC pound is after the giant coin war. Like this will be the only one that survives because the underlying technology is so futuristic that it has not been invented yet.
FC pound.
FC pound. Whoa! We're not affiliated with BitConnect. Anyway.
The FCP boys are in no way affiliated with BitConnect.
No.
But yeah, and if you don't want some sick new digital currencies,
We've got monkeys smoking cigarettes. If that's what you want,
I will draw a stick monkey. And
they've been drawn in the future already.
they've been drawn in the future already. Good point, because time is a flat circle. But if you don't have any money and you're poor like us, you can go to.
Don't talk to us.
You can go to the website and no, don't leave us. We're so lonely. we need you.
Prefer you keep listening. You can.
We just don't want to hear from you.
You can donate any cryptocurrency as long as it's US dollar to our.
Okay, we'll take euros and NTD as well, but
As long as it's converted to US dollar first.
you can also go to the website and click on the ads.
Yeah. No. Well, only if you're interested. Don't click for fun. Folks.
Yeah, it's not a game. This is a very serious issue. But if you're interested, click on that.
Go to our website and click on the ads if you find any interest in any of these things and you're interested in our products. Or just saying, you can donate us US dollars and we will donate. We will grant you access to the FC pound, the coin of the future, and you can use that to purchase FCP NFTs.
FCP NFTs, yes. We're getting. I know you hate acronyms, so we're gonna have a lot of new ones on the website now.
They're
All right.
non-fungible, folks.
They're physical non-fungible tokens. So
Well, they're also non-physical, non-fungible. Non-physical, non-fungible, non-tokens.
yes,
Those exist too.
in NFTs.
Okay, bye.
Love you guys. Bye. SCP.
Say